Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. I hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe. So just before we do make a start, I would like to go over a few things, such as, so for example, today's session, whoever is joining us will be automatically muted and your videos will not be shared with anyone as well. But if you do have any questions, please do type in the chat box. So we'll try to answer as many as possible. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this pop-up series today. Just to inform you all that this is an online session and it will be recorded. However, only the speakers, so myself and our guest speaker today, Josh, will be recorded, so you don't need to worry about yourself. Your screen name may appear on the side as an attendees list. That's all it would be. If for any reason you are having any technical issues at the moment, please log out of this session. So just by closing the tab and try to rejoin by using a different browser. That should help normally. Okay. So just to point out some of the things that we will be covering today, will be just a quick introduction about myself and MDXworks of the service, just in case you haven't met me before or you don't know about me. We will discuss the technical IT sector, so how things are changing in the current circumstances, what you can do, some of the resources that you could use, and how to fill in the gaps really in this time, the current time, for your applications in the future. And also we'll go through some useful data to look into. That will be really, really useful for you all to maybe look at the skills, some of the in-demand skills for IT sector, as well as the fastest growing skills. So this data is obtained from the actual employers themselves. So what kind of skills they are looking for in this field. And then obviously we'll talk about how maybe you can use some of the resources to fill in those gaps. Then I'll be passing on to Josh Moont, who is the CTO, so Chief Technical Officer of a startup company called WeSwap. And Josh will talk about his experiences and his journey and give you some of the tips on how to get into maybe starting your own startup company or how to look about going into a job role within IT sector. Then we will have a Q&A session, so please do keep your questions saved or type in as we go, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible at the end of the session. So for those of you who still don't know me, my name is Rabia. I am the Faculty Employability Advisor for Science and Technology, mainly supporting computer science and design engineering mathematics courses. I am also an alumni of this university, so I myself have studied business information systems undergraduate as well as the postgraduate studies at Middlesex University. So I do have a student experience of being here. I am available Monday to Friday, so you can email me, as you can see on the screen right now. There is a phone number as well to directly call me. If for some reason you are studying any other course that's not in computer science or design engineering mathematics, we do have advisors for each specific area, so you can go on our website or just email us at mdxworks@mdx.ac.uk. We'll get back to you with your queries answered. Just to give you a little background, so I know some of you have already been joining us for the pop-up series or sessions and you have been on campus in our office. But if you don't know, we are a service here to provide tailored support and guidance to all our students in terms of employment. So we have dedicated advisors for each faculty. We try to run as many exciting activities and opportunities for all our students. So in order to stay on top of all this, I would suggest that you connect with us through our social media, so through Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, just to keep up on top with all these weekly schedule that we have available for you. So just to go into this slide at the moment on the screen, as we all are aware that jobs are always evolving rapidly and mostly all the organizations are adapting to new practices and emerging technology. So this is really important for you, or especially coming from a technology background. So you should be aware of maybe how to cope with these changes in the future or currently as well. So in this current situation, it's really crucial for the UK's technical sector as the current circumstances both drive innovation and shift in a way that we all are working and learning each day. So we ourselves as a service, we are also learning new things. For you as a student, it's really important to have a journey planned out. I think I have discussed this with many of you in my one-to-ones as well. So having some kind of plan is really important, especially in these current circumstances, and also a backup plan. So just in case if your plan doesn't go according to the way you want things to be, there's some disruption. So you should have a backup plan as well. And for this, it's really important to know what you are really working towards, what's your end goal. And the most important factor is how you are going to achieve this goal. What we would really like to discuss today is some of the skills. So the most important thing is to make use of resources as well. If you don't know what you are really working towards, you wouldn't be able to have a plan. So this is why in one of my slides today, I will mention about some of the technical skills that are in demand at the moment. And if for some reason you think you don't have those skills, how could you be looking to get those skills on board? So how could you attain them? Maybe, signing up to a different course or picking up some online resources, maybe getting in touch with me on maybe how to attain those, those skills. It's really important at this time, in the crucial stages right now. So for you, it'll be really important to look into different resources. For example, through our website, we are running pop-up series every Tuesday and Thursday. There are different employers that will be coming in to talk to students. You may think some of the areas are not for you. However, I would really suggest that you tune in. There will be recorded sessions as well for you to get into, to get hold of them afterwards. It will be really, really useful to pick up the skills from these sessions, some of the knowledge, so you can apply that knowledge into that area that you are interested in. This is really, really important because, for example, if you are, let's say, if you attend something to do with NHS, they could be giving really, really important skills or tips on how to do your application, how to get in contact with employers, and you can apply the same thing in the technical area as well. So it's sort of the same kind of route and planning journey. So I would suggest that you get probably a paper or, just a Word document or something, physically write down your plan, what kind of risk could be involved, what you need to do with your time, what kind of activities you should be involved in, and how could you be providing something that another candidate may not. So especially right now, the way things are going, you may think that there's not that many jobs. However, there are in IT industry is still growing. There is a room for you to go and apply, make applications. I have discussed a grad cracker session before with you all as well. So, that is one platform that is actively recruiting right now. There's many placements, job opportunities there, but it's all about making sure that you get a point across how you are standing out from the crowd. So that's really, really important. And for that, especially in these current circumstances, it's really important for you to stay positive and productive. So your well-being is really important, and also identifying career ideas. So it doesn't need to be just a typical job application where you go online platform and just make an application. It could be maybe looking into a longer term plan, for example, your own startup company. And that's where I'm sure Josh will be able to give you a bit more tips on. Understanding required skills. I'll go through some of these in the next slide, how you could get tooled up, and understanding the job in the virtual environment currently. So things may be looking different. You may start off, let's say, an induction or a job in September onwards where you'll be working virtually. So maybe getting yourself ready for those kind of things. So this slide shows you 3 graphs, as you can see. I don't know if it's quite clear to see, but these will be shared, these slides afterwards as well. So you should be able to access this after. This is just showing top skills. So this data is obtained from LinkedIn Learning, and it's really important to see in IT sector some of the top skills, the technical skills, and some of the in-demand skills and fastest growing skills. So this will help you to identify, on screen you can see that this data is obtained from LinkedIn Learning. This is timely data, so it may change time to time. This is data taken from their network of 660 plus million professionals and 20 plus million jobs to reveal the most in-demand and fastest growing skills. So I thought sharing this data would be very useful, so you can see per skill whether you have the skill already incorporated into your course. If it is in your course, what are you exactly doing with that? Because it's not just about listing a skill. You should be able to provide examples on your applications as well. So when you're doing, for example, your CVs, we try to always recommend our students not to just list a bullet point of, just key skills. I could do that. Any student could do that. It's about how you obtain that skill and giving examples. So it's really important for you to write down, according to these graphs, which could change obviously with the time growing, if there is that skill that you haven't attained already in your course, how could you get that skill now on board? Do you need to sign up for a short course online? Would you need to maybe, go onto YouTube, learn in your own time? Is it LinkedIn courses? That's really useful as well. Do you need to sign up to one of these courses? Some of these are they're free as well. They're free of charge, and you do get a certification at the end as well. So it's really, really important to go through this data. We can discuss this in our one-to-one appointments as well. So, it's really important for you to identify these skills and see how you could plan your journey, as I discussed in the previous slide, and what you really need to do to be able to get on top of these skills, because these are not just something that we have just listed by taking out from, current technical area. It's actually from coming from the employers themselves, the organizations, that this is what they look for. And you can see there are different skills. It's not the same data in each graph. What's in the in-demand skills is totally different from the top skills that you may attain in your course. So what you need to do is really look into this, and this is something we can discuss in a one-to-one. So I don't want to take too much time from Josh in this session. I will go on to introducing Josh, who is the Chief Technical Officer of WeSwap. I believe Josh has experience of building websites and, in the artificial intelligence, and I'll let him talk his experience with you all now.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you very much for the introduction. So hopefully you can all hear me okay. I'll start off with a little background as to my experience and how I've got to where I am. And it starts about 10 years ago when a friend of mine came up with an idea for WeSwap and invited me along to actually build the product out. So he had the idea, which was a travel money product, enabling users to exchange money between themselves, so like peer-to-peer. So instead of going through a bank or a travel company, you would do it with each other, and then making it really easy for them to then spend it on holiday using a simple one card. And so he was looking for someone to come along and build the platform. And I think the first lesson probably is having that appetite of risk. So obviously this was a new idea, a new startup. I was going from a stable job into potentially something that was more risky, because not all startups work. But at the time, I had that appetite of risk. And obviously with that appetite, potentially there's great rewards as well. So being honest with yourself about that appetite probably is my first tip. But then to start with, I architected the platform, built up a small team of developers to actually build that MVP, which is the minimum viable product. And that's a nice keyword there. And there's probably a bit of jargon I'll be saying. Hopefully I'll try and explain it myself as I go along. But that minimum viable product is where you start with in a startup in terms of actually proving the concept and proving Sorry, I think I dropped off there for a second. The fun of the internet. Can you hear me again?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. So, I was saying, so we built out that MVP, and then we built on that and launched our product about 10 years ago. And it was very successful. We had lots of people using it. And I stayed there for about another 6 years, building out the product, building out the features, and building out the team. And I felt at that point that I'd done what I wanted at WeSwap, and I moved on about 4 years ago and looked to expand my experiences, because WeSwap had been my sort of first experience as a CTO. And I wanted to look for more opportunities. And I think that's also something important to be aware of, that you don't get stuck on one thing, but you look at other things, because there's lots of opportunities out there. And so I moved on. I started doing some consultancy for different startups, trying to help them with understanding what their MVP should be and focusing into their USP, which is a unique selling point. So obviously you need to, when you have a startup and with a tech idea especially, try and work out what's unique about you, what you're selling, which is different to someone else, and then working out how you actually build that out. Can you build it on top of other systems, or do you have to build it all from scratch, and where to invest your money and time? And so I did quite a lot of that consulting, which was really interesting, talking to different companies and different people. And one of them was a company called School Notices, which was based around creating communities around schools and creating value for the schools and for those parents with a marketplace and a blog and in time other things as well. And they had built a platform with an agency, but it wasn't scalable. So they needed someone to come in and rebuild the platform, which I did about 4 years ago. And we built a platform with an outsourced team based in Romania. I ran that project, and we launched the new platform initially in Asia and in Australia, and then migrated the UK website to the new platform subsequently. And I stayed there again, building out the features and building out the idea until late last year, when I was contacted again by my friend at WeSwap saying that they were looking to re-platform, which is basically rebuild the whole thing, because things have changed over time and they wanted to take advantage of the new ecosystem in fintech. So I came back the end of last year, and then obviously this year's been a bit interesting. So things are a bit on pause at the moment, seeing as it's a travel money product and there hasn't been much travel. But I can tell you a bit about our thoughts in terms of why we were re-platforming. And I think that's really interesting in terms of how generally tech has changed. So 10 years ago, we had to build everything from scratch. There wasn't really much of a fintech scene, and we had to build the whole stack of platform, right from connecting into card issuers and payment platforms all the way through to how the users actually got their card, etc. Whereas now, flash forward, and actually you can buy or use banking systems that are off the shelf that do all of this for you. And I think that's quite indicative of the whole tech industry in terms of these software as a service, SaaS products, which allow you to build on top of other people. So you don't have to build everything. You can just concentrate on that top tier in terms of how you interface with your users. And I think that comes back to that USP, the unique selling point. And I think that it's not so much the value of a company is no longer in having lots of tech and lots of ways, that whole stack, but actually, how am I going to be different to everyone else? How am I not just going to be another banking app? What different thing am I doing? So at WeSwap, we focus around the travel experience. So unlike other banks and other prepaid cards who are just general, we focus on the travel experience and making sure that the users through our card have a cheaper and more relaxing rate, because we try and deal with as much of the headaches as possible for them. And I think that's across the tech industry. There is more interesting things happening now because the harder sort of stack has been dealt with. And I think there's more exciting things coming. And I think from my point of view, I think the real big thing coming is data. So we've heard all the buzzwords around data. So whether that's big data or machine learning or AI, those are kind of all the buzzwords that are being heard about at the moment. But what does that actually mean? And I think it's actually really difficult for us to say at this time because it's so new. But for each industry and for each company, they have different ways of using this data. So it's really about learning from the data that we get as a company from our users. So whether that's the data that we get from them browsing our website and understanding where they're going, or whether that's for us how they use their card, and using this data in a secure and anonymized way. Like, we're not being Big Brother, we're not looking at you specifically. What we're doing is looking at data generally and trying to see patterns and try and see ways that we can use that data to make the experience for our users better. So for example, for travel, maybe experience recommendations based on our users spending their money or going on specific holidays, and we can see patterns of that. We could then share those insights with our users and say, maybe you've been here first, maybe you should go here next, because that's what 9 out of 10 of our WeSwap users are doing, which is really interesting. But then also potentially notifying users with actions based on similar patterns we've seen. So being there at the right time during their journey, and just sort of, they like to say, delighting users. We want to try and surprise you in a good way, in terms of, here's something that we think that you might need at this point, and trying to be clever about that. And that brings value not only to the users, which is what we want to do, but also to then encourage users to use our product, which is obviously good for us. So data, I think, is probably the biggest thing in general in tech. But in fintech specifically, I think there's some really interesting stuff coming. And so if you're interested in fintech, you might have heard about open banking, which is a new initiative come out by the EU and our government to try and make banking more open and accessible, specifically for users' data. So allowing banks and startups like us to aggregate data across different accounts and then do interesting things with it. And potentially other things is movement of money across different accounts without having to use like networks like MasterCard and Visa. So being able to do like a bank transfer, but in a much simpler way. So instead of having to take your sort code and account number and try and find your bank app and then open it up and try and type it in right and be sure that you typed it in right, even with new information coming in now, which checks the name of the recipient, which is good. That's also part of this whole open banking movement. It's still quite a difficult thing. So in the new world, potentially with open banking, you'd be able to initiate a payment from your app. It would then pop up your bank's mobile app and say, do you want to authorize this? You say yes, and that's done. And so you can see that that is really a game changer in terms of how payments are moved. So that's another really interesting thing. So I think I've talked quite a lot about the space and about my background. So specifically to look into startups and working in startups, I think you really have to be a good all-rounder because startups start very small. So if you're the first person in or you're one of the first people in, you're going to be doing lots of different things. And you have to have that risk appetite, but you also have to have the appetite of learning new things. So, you know, I came in as a CTO, but honestly, it was just me and the founders. So I wasn't really a CTO. I was just the tech guy. And I had to do everything in terms of tech, which included setting up the office in terms of Office 365, in terms of networking, in terms of computers, and making lots of decisions about lots of tech things because I was the tech person. So you do have to have that kind of overall rounded knowledge. And that comes from just reading lots of different things, whether that's online or magazines or like Rabia said, doing courses and looking for resources in terms of making sure you have a reasonably broad knowledge of tech and also seeing what's coming. So look at the magazines which talk about, you know, future ideas and what's coming, because startups especially have an advantage of being able to have that risk of taking on newer things, which bigger companies might not have the risk to do. So in a startup, you might be using open banking, whereas a bigger company might be slower to try and uptake that because they see that as a bigger risk. And so that's the first thing in terms of working in startups and making sure that you have that good understanding in that technology in terms of what's coming, because that can also help your company stand out from the crowd. Like you're looking at how you can stand out from the crowd. Startups also have to look at how they can stand out from the crowd in terms of there's lots of different ideas coming out. How is your idea better? What technology stack are you using to give yourself that edge? And I think that's where the data part comes in and where the data part is really interesting in terms of using that data to create those better experiences. And if you looked at that screen that Rabia shared in terms of all the in-demand things, I think there are some patterns there. And I think they're around data and whether that's machine learning or AI or SQL in terms of actually understanding how to query databases. That is one of the in-demand and trending things. And then I think the other big thing coming behind that is supporting that. So, you know, we have big data, that's a lot of data, and we need to work out how to support that data. And so that's around cloud infrastructure and managing the cloud and managing how to best get the information out of these big data sets. And I think that is probably it.
Thank you, Josh. That was really, really useful. I'm sure you all think that it's very useful, the tips and the information that Josh shared with us today. Just going over that again, yes, it's really essential and it's really important that, if you have any idea, obviously try to be unique with that idea, but it's very important to utilize any opportunity that you see in your way. So, if you have any quite good, things that you would like to get on with, or you'd like to do your own startup, but you need to have a plan in place. It's really important. And, utilizing some of the resources that are available for you. And of course, you'll have to list down yourself what you think you will need on the way as well. And to be able to work towards those realistic kind of goals and, the timeline. So just before we end.
Sorry, I think that's a really good point, and I think that when I'm looking at developers or people to bring on, what's really good to see in a CV is past experience, and that's not always easy to get in terms of actually going out and getting experience. But that doesn't mean that you can't do things yourself. So whether that's playing around with different apps or building things or just experimenting, if you can prove that you've got some code or some experience, even if that's only by yourself, that still makes you stand out versus people who are just listing things without any kind of backup of that experience.
Yeah, so I think definitely it's always been said in every discussions, and whenever we're helping with our students with the CVs, that make sure you don't just list a skill, you are able to back up with an example. And the only way you'll be able to do with an example is if you obviously, it doesn't have to be in practical field where you are working with an employer to gain that skill. It could be during your course, it could be just getting into any co-curricular activities, any kind of even participation in like an event or course. Just gaining knowledge from that. As long as you're aware of something, I'm pretty sure when you graduate, you're just a recent graduate. Employers are not out there looking for you to have, a full-on profile ready to go into, a bit higher kind of role. It will be a starting role. They will be there to help you. That's why most of these, opportunities are called graduate opportunities or graduate roles, because they are aware that you are recent graduates. So just on that note, I will say if there's any questions, please do type in the chat box. There's a question Q&A section as well. I think we have one, so I can read out the questions to you. Don't you think if the data is used that way, you are shaping the user and reducing his possibility for the movement of money and travel as YouTube tries to shape your thought by showing same kind of video?
So the idea is to be able to suggest things. So obviously we're not going to be forcing people down any route. They still got options. But I think the idea is that sometimes, like sort of a Pinterest, you don't really know what you want. You know what kind of things you like, and so you do a general search, or you have been into general kind of things. And what we're trying to do is help you with a few ideas, and not just one idea, but a few ideas as to where you could potentially go next. And we think that that is potentially a helpful thing. But like I said, these are early days with data, so there might be better insights that we come once we actually start introducing these features that will help people in a better way. So it's a good point, and you have to watch this space. Unfortunately, it's not. I haven't got all the answers at this stage, and I think that's also important to understand. That you need to be flexible and need to understand, again, using data, what your users are interested in, what works, and then be able to pivot or change based on the information that you get from those users.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any other questions? So WeSwap is mostly powered by fintech.
So fintech is a general name for financial technology businesses. So WeSwap is a fintech business, as would Monzo or Revolut be also classed as a fintech business. Powered by, I'm not quite sure what that means. Technology, yes, it is powered by technology, and then it's in the fintech space. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any other questions at all? I've actually got one as well. So, for example, as a chief technical officer, or let's say you were on the panel and you were, doing recruitment, and let's say a recent graduate, you're looking to recruit a recent graduate or a placement internship, kind of work experience. Other than just technical skills, what other things would you look out for as an employer from your perspective?
Yeah, good question. So we have taken on graduates in the past. I believe as an employee that it's more about the attitude and the openness to learn than necessarily huge amounts of experience. And I think you get that from being able to prove that you've done things and played around with things and are eager to learn and are open to learn, because I think that's really important. Like you said earlier, Rabia, that we don't expect graduates to come in with huge amounts of experience, but we do expect them to have that appetite for learning. And I think communication is the other side of that as well, being a good communicator and a good team player, and making sure that you're open to be given ideas and given direction, but also are vocal in terms of giving your ideas, because it is all about communicating and sharing those ideas so that we can all work together to build the best product we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think there were some very good keywords in there, like communication, team player, and we do normally, I do tell my students the same thing, that if you have covered those points, not just technical skills, so make sure you do talk about soft skills. So it's good to know that as an employer perspective, those are also the things that you look out for, other than just technical profile. Any other questions at all before we end the session today? No? Okay, so if there's no questions at all, thank you once again for joining us. We will be ending the session now, so you can leave by just closing the tab. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Josh. I think just before leaving, there's just a question that came up. Is your company taking an intern?
For that, I was just typing a response. So not at the moment, unfortunately, because of the current situation, but we do have a jobs page on our website. So that's WeSwap.com. You're very welcome to go and have a look and follow that. And we do, every so often, we do take interns on. So not yet, but there is potential in the future, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.